Hey guys, welcome back to the Within Reach podcast. Steph is joining me today, of course, because it is her business. But
Imagine you could just run a solo podcast.
I don't think anyone would want to.
No, they would. They absolutely would listen
stories
to
on that. Anyways, today we're talking everything pregnancy because surprise, surprise, Steph is pregnant.
that. Yay! So exciting.
Very exciting.
Also
and
really stressful.
Very stressful. I can see it from the sidelines and I, applaud you for managing everything so well.
Thanks. I feel like I'm not.
From my point of view, I think you're managing
Because you have to,
very well.
the thing is, right, you have to have a poker face. Like nobody can know that you're actually dying on the inside.
Maybe, I don't know. I feel like I'd be a whinger the entire time.
No, I am.
No.
You just don't see it.
Oh, fair enough. But yeah, today everything is pregnancy related in terms of, training, nutrition, and I also just want to know a little bit more about Steph's perspective in terms of how she's managing the pregnancy.
Yeah, I am keen to get into this because I think like just bringing it back to women's health and then fitness as well. Like obviously this is the first time I'm going through this, but at the same time, there are so many women who just have so many thoughts on pregnancy and fitness. And I think like debunking some of that today will be really good because I know when I fell pregnant, I was like, I don't even know where to start. Like I was so confused with what the right information is, what the wrong information is. I was like, can I train? Can I even train? I have no idea. And I know like we've also worked with like prenatal and postpartum women too, and they also come in with the same concerns.
Yeah.
So
well, we were even having a conversation earlier in terms of like what your experience was when you fell pregnant and you were like, oh, like no one really reached out to, tell me what to do. Not that, someone's going to know, but even if you're going to a doctor, there was really limited information that you got.
yeah, there was. So like, first of all, the pregnancy wasn't planned at all. So it was a really nice surprise. And so the first thing that we did was actually hilariously. So Roberta, like I think I told you were there the day we found out.
Yeah.
Because you heard
by
it
accident.
No, well, because you were working. It was a Friday. And Roberta works in the office with me on Fridays. And I was like late for my period for like, I thought I was about 2 or 3 weeks late, but I'd been tracking my period really regularly. And then I just got midway through last year and I was like, ugh. And I just stopped tracking it because I was like, it's regular, it's fine. I don't have a reason to track it. And I know my body quite well. So I just like stopped tracking it. So then I was like, am I like, I'm definitely late. Am I late? Am I only a week late? Oh, I've been a bit stressed lately. And I was sick as well, like 2 weeks prior. So I thought maybe my period's just late. And it got to a point where I actually texted Jack and I said, hey, can you bring some pregnancy tests home? I just want to rule it out. And he was like, yeah, let's rule it out. Like that was literally the conversation. And then Jack got home and you were sitting in the office and I went and took a test and the line came up instantly. And I was like, holy fuck. And do you remember Jack and I like whispering around the house like little kids?
Wait, no.
Do you not remember that?
No, because I found out after you had a phone call.
Yeah. But that phone call was like 2 weeks later because we were going to Melbourne.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, so I don't know if you're going to remember this, but you were sitting in the office and Jack and I were like whispering and giggling around the house because we were like, what the fuck? And I was so stressed that I didn't want to say anything to you because like I literally found out in that moment. And it was a day where I was like, hey, do you want to finish up early today? Like just go at 3, it's fine. Because I'm like freaking out on the inside. Jack's in the kitchen like in the fetal position.
I wish I'd seen that.
Oh my God. And I walked into the room and I said something to try and play it off. I was like, oh, fucking Jack, he's trying to be funny and blah, blah, blah. And actually we were both like just crying because we couldn't believe that I was pregnant. And you were just sitting there working.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Oh, well, there you go.
Fun fact.
So we hit that relative really
God.
well. But then anyway, so that afternoon we booked into the doctors because I didn't know what to do. And I think that's the biggest thing is like you find out you're pregnant. The first thing that you do is you go, right, I'm going to go to the GP. So we went to the doctor and the doctor said, like I was expecting them to do like a full routine, like, I don't know. I actually don't know what I was going to expect. I was like blood test, maybe they'll get me to pee in a cup, like the whole thing. And I walked in and he goes, if it's 2 lines, you're definitely pregnant. He said the tests, like the sticks, are so accurate these days that like if it says you're pregnant, the chances of that being false are really, really low. So he's like, so congrats. And then they did send me off to do a blood test just to obviously confirm it. And then all that they did was they read me through a couple of things, which it was helpful, but it was basic information. A lot of it I already knew. And then emailed me through a link to this like government website which tells you all the foods that you like can and can't eat.
Yeah,
And
which we will cover later on.
Yeah, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then then we had to book a scan. So then once you're at 8 weeks, they get you to book in a scan so that you can actually see what's going on in there. So we had the scan. And then after that scan, we had another GP appointment. And then they took us through like, do you want to opt into NIP tests, which is basically like chromosomal issues and Down syndrome and stuff in the baby. Like you can find out that stuff early, which is so cool, just to make sure that the baby's healthy. So it is an extra cost, but we opted into that and we actually then could get tested for the gender of the baby. We had that like 3 weeks ago and then there's nothing since.
Yeah.
Like,
so you kind of just left in the dark on your own.
Yeah, you are a little bit. Like I am booked into a hospital appointment with the midwife, which is next Tuesday, but it's like in between all these appointments for a first-time mum who doesn't really know what to expect, there's literally nothing in between. And that was really hard for me to navigate because like, especially in the first 12 weeks, I was like, is the baby okay? I don't know. Am I supposed to be feeling this way? What's going on?
I just feel like that would be very stressful because I guess
really
you're kind of in the dark and you don't know.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with something really important.
Yeah, and you just have to like trust that everything's fine and then wait and hope that the next test is fine. Like I remember constantly saying to Jack, like, once I get through this next, because I think we've had like 3 or 4 tests now. Like once I get through this next test, I'll feel so much better. You get through the next test and then you just start stressing about the following one. Once you get through that 12 weeks, in my opinion, like I feel so much more calm now. But that first 12 weeks is...
Yeah, I think it's just rocky. And again, you're kind of on your own there. You don't know because you can't do too much in terms of like you're just sitting around and waiting.
Yeah, and you literally can't do anything like they say as well with miscarriage and like issues with the baby. Like there's nothing that the mother does wrong that could make that, like it's just, it is what it is. Like if that happens, that's just what it is. So
yeah,
that's also hard knowing you don't have no control over it.
Yeah. Well, other than that, in terms of like, you know, understanding what you're meant to do and what you can't do, how has the pregnancy been so far?
My first 12 weeks were really bad. Like, I mean, I know you and I have spoken about this, but like it was really bad. I can't even describe to you the thing that got me. Like people say when you fall pregnant, like expect the first 12 weeks you're going to feel sick and you're going to feel run down and your body's changing and all these things. And like that's true. Like I definitely like was really sick and I kind of expected that. So it wasn't too bad because I knew it was coming. The thing that really got me was the lack of energy, like the fatigue. Nobody told me how bad your energy would be. And in that initial 12 weeks, specifically week 6 through to like week 12, I was like sleeping 12 hours overnight. And then I would wake up and I would get the day going. I'd be sick in the morning and then I'd get to like 11 a.m. and I would be so wiped. I would feel like I needed to go back to sleep. And it was so hard too because coming into like trying to work was impossible. A lot of the time I was like laying sideways on the lounge working from my laptop and I was probably getting like 3 hours of work done in a day, which is nothing for me because I'm usually work like 10 to 12 hours a day. So like to have to just kind of like put my hands up and wave the white flag and be like, I'm just going to have to like accept this. That was really hard mentally. So then that was the other element too. It was because my fatigue was so bad to the point where I can't even explain to you, like it's not an over exaggeration. I literally couldn't function for about 5 weeks there. It was so bad. And then that had a really bad impact on me mentally because someone who moves as quickly as I do, I had to slow down to the point of basically doing nothing. And like I even remember there was heaps of days I sent you home early. I was like, hey, can you just work from home? Like I can't do it.
I just as like a side note for everyone, Steph like wakes up at 5 a.m. and will finish at like 8 p.m.
Yeah, I'm
8 p.m.
Crazy.
Yeah, Steph's crazy. She loves to work, but you love what you do. Like you love building what you're building at the moment. So I think it seems like that's the part that was taken away from you in a sense. And I think that would have added to make it more challenging.
It was so, yeah. And that was what it was. And then it was like because of the lack of energy, the mental state that I was in was just so bad. The only thing I'm like thanking my lucky stars for, which is going to sound so stupid because don't get me wrong, like I'm so grateful for this baby. I'm so grateful to have conceived naturally and all the things. Like I am grateful. And at the end of the day, like it's just what you have to go through. But I'm also so grateful that I fell pregnant at the time of year I did because at the time that I was going through that first trimester, we were wrapping up for the year. Like we were in November, December, quietest months of the year in business. We were wrapping up, we were getting ready for holidays. So I felt like I could actually unwind a little bit anyway, versus if it was now, like beginning of I would have just been not in a good place.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I feel like it was at a good time. In terms of, I also want to just cover a little bit more as to like how you're going with, I guess, like your goals at the moment with pregnancy. Like, because I know that before you're always in a state of like, oh, like what's my fitness goal at the moment? Like, am I building? Am I gaining strength? Like, how are you navigating that now?
I've just kind of decided to, like, again, just accept that that's not really where I am at the moment. And because of that, I have really taken the pressure off myself, which is, it's so nice because ever since I remember, I've been so concerned about my body and, you know, when I was younger and all that. And then I got into being a coach. And then, you know, since like 2018, I've been every year, like, this is the goal, this is the focus. And I've been really hard working towards a deficit or a building phase. And it's always been focused so heavily around how I look. And for the first time in what I feel like is my whole life, I just don't care. And I've like accepted the fact that my body's changing. It's going to continue to change. And so I've come into this year really prioritizing like health over anything else. And I just don't care about anything because like I can't diet right now. I maybe could build a bit of muscle, but like my body's focusing on trying to navigate a baby. So it's just like, it's not worth it for me and it's not worth the stress. So I've really just like accepted it. And yeah, I think for me, it's taken the pressure off a lot. So this year, all I'm focusing on is health and habits, like habits over anything else too. Because the other thing that I keep thinking back to is when I have this baby, because I'm due in July, I don't know if this is like naive of me, and people who have had babies, like mums, might roll their eyes. I don't know. I don't know if this is naive, but I really want to keep the habits when I have her. Like I want to be able to still do the things I need to do for my health and fitness. And I still want to look after like my training and my nutrition, even when she's a newborn. And I don't know, we might get there and it might not happen. But in the lead up, my focus is like, can I make sure I'm eating really well? And I'm not tracking my macros or anything, but focusing on 3 or 4 solid meals a day, prioritizing my protein, prioritizing like fruit and veg every single day of the week, making all my meals at home where I can and not eating shit. Because that'll just make me feel worse. And then with training as well, like I want to keep a consistent routine of training at least 4 days a week. You know, as I get further through the pregnancy, if 4 days is not manageable anymore, that's fine, I'll adjust. But right now I'm like, if I can stick to those habits, that's all that I really care about.
Yeah, I feel like you're a really regimented person. So if something's not, you know, going the way that you wanted it to, I feel like you'll find another alternative or you'll find something else to kind of anchor you down.
Yeah, that's it. Like I'll be it's like structured flexibility is what I come back to, right? And I've spoken about this before. It's like, even though you have a structure, whether that is I want to train 4 days a week or I want to prep my food or whatever it is, I want to get up at 5 a.m. It's flexibility in the sense of like, if that no longer works for where I'm at, I will change it, but I still need some form of structure within it. So for example, the 4 days of training a week, maybe it's not the same days every week, but it's still hitting the goal of 4 days. Or if it's not having like, you know, 140 grams of protein a day and tracking my macro, but it's like, can I have 3 solid meals? And I feel like they're goals you can kind of shift but keep, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you'll be fine keeping them. I've seen you do it before. I've seen you like adapt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. It's just, I think you just got to go into it with a positive headspace. So many people talk negatively about like pregnancy, and the amount of comments I've already heard on like, oh, you're not going to have any sleep and you're going to be exhausted. And I'm like, I don't want to hear that. Like, thank you for your concern, but I want to go into this positively because I think that's the only way to make sure that if I do have challenges, I'm kind of already going into it thinking that I'll be able to manage and everything's okay.
Yeah, I think because also you're an adult, you know what this entails. So like,
yeah, I mean, it's only one way to fall pregnant.
Well, there you go. So yeah, I think you already know what you're doing, and in terms of like what to expect, it's just like you said, going into it with a positive headspace of like, oh, like how will I manage, and like I will be able to manage anyway.
Yeah.
In terms of training when you're pregnant, because you're saying that you're wanting to train, you know, 4 days a week or like adapt even then, we want to actually talk a little bit more as to like, you know, training whilst you're pregnant. And firstly, we want to touch base on like the guidelines that are set out for pregnant women at the moment in terms of the Australian government and what guidelines they give you.
Yeah.
And then from there, we'll just cover a little bit more in depth about it.
Yeah. So the first thing is when I went for that initial appointment, the day that I found out I was pregnant, as I said to you guys before, like I went in and the doctor gave me like outdated rundown of all of this information, which a lot of it I already knew being a fitness coach because it was all health related. There was a few things that I found out that I was like, oh, that's cool or whatever. But one of the biggest things is I did ask him about my training and I said, look, like I'm a coach. I just am curious if there's anything that you know about training that I need to be mindful of. And he first of all said, if you're a coach, you'll be fine because most women will fall pregnant and then kind of get a coach because they get a bit nervous about like what to do, what not to do. He said, so you'll be fine. He said, though, the only thing you need to do is you need to keep your heart rate under 150 beats per minute. So then I went through like pretty much the whole first trimester, which by the way, I was feeling so fucked the first trimester. I think I was lucky to train 3 times. So I went like 10 weeks without training. Just as an FYI, like if you're going into your first pregnancy, just take the pressure off your first trimester, in my opinion, because like in my eyes, I did not expect it to be so bad. And this is not the experience for everyone. Like some of you may have had babies or may fall pregnant in the future and your first trimester might be fine. Everyone experiences different symptoms, but like take the pressure off yourself because I didn't train for 10 weeks and I just couldn't, like it was too much. But yeah, he said, keep your heart rate under 150 beats per minute. So the couple of sessions I did do, Jack was on me. He was like, because he's anal like I am. He was like, I had my watch on and he's like, your heart rate's at 160, get it down. Like stop doing what you're doing. Don't go so hard. And even for me, I felt unsafe because I was told 150 beats per minute. So outdated. It's actually not true, but it's the information that the doctors and the government has. And because there's not, as you said off air, like there's not enough research being done into women's health as a whole, but there's not enough being done into pregnancy. And there's not enough like studies to back up all of this evidence. And because of that, the 150 beats per minute is like a blanket statement. But someone like me or someone like you who trains frequently and trains hard a lot of the time, your body can handle more.
Yeah. So, well, firstly, we just want to preface like you said, everyone's, journey is going to be different. So you need to make sure that firstly you're speaking to someone who's a health professional with your specific case because it's case by case dependent.
Yeah.
In terms of, the studies and, for example, like you said, it was outdated research on, keeping your heart rate under 150 beats per minute. Is that correct?
Yeah.
In terms of like those, like there's lots of studies done about pregnancies, but the thing is because there's not enough invested in that or there's not enough to conclude specific conclusions that they can be like, okay, like this is the new thing, we need to, put that forward as the new guideline. Like there's just not enough information about that. And even the studies that are there, they're just lower quality. So that's just what makes it difficult to pinpoint specific things you can and can't do just because there, like you said, just isn't enough research to back all of that evidence up.
Yeah. And like Roberta knows what she's talking about because she's gone in and actually before this episode done like a whole heap of research and she's looked at like peer-reviewed studies and gone on and read articles, and she's also gone onto the Australian government website and read all of their information on there. And I haven't done as much, but I've definitely done the Australian government and a few other bits and pieces and obviously my own experience, right? So this is the biggest thing is it's like, yes, there are studies out there which they base their information off, but there's just not enough evidence and there's not enough studies done or, as you said, lower quality, and therefore you're kind of dabbling in like, is this information correct for me or not? And that's why for me, I knew once I did a bit more research into it that the 150 beats per minute for me is not correct. It's not, because I can handle more than that. My body can handle more than that. But a bit of like, I guess a way to put this into perspective is it's like, what's safe for pregnancy for training? Well, whatever you're currently doing, chances are if you're a low risk pregnancy and everything's moving the way it should be, you can continue to do that. For example, I haven't run for years, so I'm not going to start running now. That would just be stupid. That would be extra stress on the body for no reason. And it could be risky, right? But I've weight trained for years. I push myself hard in my weight training, so like I can continue that. Or, if you're somebody who is like a CrossFit athlete, then you can continue to do your CrossFit. But you might just have to modify some things along the way as you get further into your pregnancy. But if you've never done CrossFit, don't go and start it now. Like it's just being smart about your choices.
Yeah, I think a key thing that you said in terms of low risk pregnancies is that that's something to keep in mind, is that majority of the information, like yes, there's outliers, but for the majority of the information with a low risk pregnancy, there's so many things that you actually can do that you may not have thought you can. So what I've done is I've just segmented it into different, scenarios and different things that we want to discuss. So firstly, like the online promotion of like prenatal exercise and like people's perceptions towards it. So few studies have been done about that, and it seems that majority of the studies just demonstrate that people mainly go to social media for guidelines and for information rather than seeking it from health professionals. And because there's so much, information out there, some of it can be misleading and some of it is misleading, especially when it's targeted towards women who already, a bit more vulnerable in terms of, weight loss, and now you're gaining weight during a pregnancy.
Yeah.
So there's just lots of information about that. And it's just something to stay wary of, that you do need to seek, professional help and guidance as opposed to just going online. Yeah. And I would even argue that you should be able to like at least try to make an effort to see multiple professionals, just because you do want those multiple points of view to see what aligns with you and what feels best for you.
Yeah, and you will anyway. Like the thing is, you've got to know what questions to ask in order to get the information, which is the hard thing. Like in pregnancy, in terms of my pregnancy anyway, like I am dealing with my GP. I'm dealing with the guys that do all the scans, which, their information is more based on the baby, not on me. But then I'll be dealing with midwives from next week. So like I'll have the midwife that I can refer back to. You can also get obstetricians, and then you can get coaches, and you've got all these people that you can utilize. But you've got to also know what questions to ask, and that can make it really hard. One of the biggest things that I've noticed is that women are scared to exercise in general when they have when they're pregnant. And I can actually even relate this back to some clients we've had in the past who have fallen pregnant with us and then stopped their training with us for all different reasons, But a lot of them, if not all of them, from what I remember, were really afraid to keep exercising. And I remember there was one client in particular quite a few years ago I had who she stopped training with us and stopped going to the gym because she was so scared of lifting weights after she fell pregnant. And I understand, like, again, there's not enough info, but I can see here you've written like a lot of the reasons why exercise during pregnancy is really beneficial. So I think we should go through those.
Yes, we definitely should. So basically, when it comes to exercise, it's absolutely fine to do. We're going to cover what you can and can't do in terms of what, the government regulates. But basically the reason why it's important to be able to, strength train, exercise, do movement is it reduces your risk of gestational diabetes, especially in the early stages. It helps you with, back and pelvic pain. It helps with mental health metrics. Just improves your quality of life and keeps that movement, going over the time period where you're going to naturally move a little bit less because, it's a little bit more challenging to do anyways. There's lots more other reasons, and they just lead back to, general reasons why we move in the first place in terms of like, increasing blood flow, spreading nutrients around your body, and, maintaining muscle mass during, a time that you will reduce the amount of strength training that you're doing likely.
Yeah, over time you will for sure. Yeah. Like I can honestly hand on heart say the amount of weight I'm lifting now, I doubt that I'll be lifting in, 3 months. But it's just you've got to take it week by week and see how you go.
Yeah. And also it depends. It's like you said before, the thing is what you do currently or what you did pre-pregnancy is going to determine a lot of the time how you manage your pregnancy and your training while you're pregnant. And there's been studies that show like, for example, the government guidelines say that you need to do, I think it's 2 to 4 hours per week. Don't quote me on that one, but
that you need to do with exercise.
Yeah, it says 2.5 to 5 hours each week, or you can do vigorous intensity activities for 1 to 2.5 hours each week.
It does say
so
that.
It's very limited in terms of how much exercise you can do, but there's been so many studies to show that it's actually okay, and they've done it on both recreational and elite athletes, and people have maintained really high volumes of training with no
bad side effects. Yeah.
No bad side effects.
Because that's the thing, right? Like I have to I know we've said it already twice, but it has to come back to like, if you're already doing it, it's generally pretty safe to continue. That's just wild. I can see here as well in all of the information that you've put down from the Australian guidelines that it's got saying like do muscle strengthening activities at least 2 days a week, which I think is great because even if it says here resistance training or light resistance training or body weight exercises, the fact that they're promoting strength training is good because so many women are worried about doing that.
It is, and I do agree because when I saw that, I was like, okay, well, that's a really positive sign. From my understanding, and again, do not quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it said after the 3rd trimester, it said limit doing those activities.
Well, I can see here it also says to avoid activities that involve heavy lifting. So this is the thing. It's like it's contradicting advice because it's saying do muscle strengthening activities. And it's saying activities like light resistance training or body weight exercises, and then avoid activities that involve heavy lifting. But that to me is just not correct either, because if you've already been doing weight training and you're continuing to do it safely, why can't you?
Yeah, and I think even, if let's just say you decide to start your weightlifting journey during your pregnancy, just do it at a modified pace. Do it like
you should be anyway,
should be anyway.
Like that's like a beginner that comes into training for the first time in the gym. Like they're going to start with the basics anyway. I think though, one thing I will say is if you're wanting to start different forms of exercise when you are pregnant, don't start them by yourself, like because there are obviously things we've got to be considerate of. So this is where I would say like get a PT or get a coach or get someone who's qualified to show you the ropes of what's the best stuff to start with, just so that you have a little bit of guidance. But yeah, I'm actually reading through all of this now and I actually can't believe some of these recommendations. That's crazy.
Which ones are you looking at?
I'm like, avoid activities that involve heavy lifting and like, but then it says be active most, if not all days of the week. But then it says moderate intensity of only 2 to 5 hours a week. Like,
I think the difficult part about it is because this document's so short, it gives no nuance and it gives no additional information or anywhere that you can actually seek that. So I think it's a little bit misleading and difficult to interpret, let's just say, to someone who's not in the coaching space.
Yeah, agreed. I highly agree with that.
I do want to touch base on nutrition because it's very similar in terms of being, underrepresented. So I actually just want to go through the guidelines that they do give. It's another document in terms of it being a short document with small points and there's just limited nuance and explanation to it. So, some of the stuff absolutely it makes a lot of sense. There's just some stuff that it can be misleading. Like, for example, the need to eat for 2 during pregnancy is a myth. I do understand that that's a really blanket statement. And it does say that in the 2nd and 3rd trimester, you may need to give extra food to provide nutrients for the growth of your baby. When they talk about nutrients though, they explain that food swaps that you should make, and some of the swaps will be swap chips for plain and unsalted popcorn, and swap ice cream for yogurt, or eat milk, cheese, and yogurt with mostly reduced fats. And I think that's
If I want ice cream on my 3rd trimester, I'm having ice cream.
Or you're not getting a tub of yogurt. That's very. I understand where they're coming from in terms of you want more nutrient consumption, but there's a different way you could have said that, because on the website, it literally just lists swaps that you need to be making.
Yeah.
And I think from someone who, again, isn't educated or in that, realm, it's going to be really difficult for them to interpret that and be like, okay, well, I guess I can have ice cream in moderation. They're probably going to think, oh my God, ice cream is not good for my baby. I'm never going to have ice cream.
Yeah.
And there's no need to be fearing any food.
You're right. It's too black and white.
Yeah.
It's way too black and white. And these are the things that I'm glad you went and looked up, because I didn't even know this stuff, because obviously for me, I wouldn't have gone on to read this stuff. But in terms of the list of stuff they give you when you're at the doctors, they point you to a website, and the website is a big list of all of the foods that you can and can't eat. And it's huge, the list. But at the end of the day, when you break it down, what they basically say in terms of foods not to eat, they say, seafood. And when they say seafood, this is another blanket statement. I had to actually research this further. It's not that you can't have seafood at all. It's that you just can't have fresh seafood that hasn't been cooked. So you can still have cooked fish, and you can still have seafood that has been completely cooked through and is served hot. But because it says seafood, everyone just avoids it altogether. You can't have sushi, which is a fair statement, because even though I love sushi so much, they literally will make sushi. It's got different type, it will be contaminated with seafood, and then it'll sit in a front section of a shop all day. So that can provide bacteria. Cold meats you can't have, because again, bacteria. A one that I thought was so interesting, rock melon. I can't eat rock melon.
Why?
So you can eat fruit and veg, but you can't eat rock melon because apparently the rind of the rock melon has so many little dips and deeps in it that it actually contains a lot of bacteria in the skin. And then when you cut through rock melon, the bacteria transfers from the knife into the center of the rock melon. And apparently rock melon is, or cantaloupe, whatever you call it, is literally like the highest bacteria driven fruit or veg ever. Like, isn't that so interesting?
Very interesting. I don't eat rock melon.
So
I
just don't. Do you don't like it?
So
oh, I
gross.
like it, but I'm not eating it now.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And then it's got like, it says on the website, you can have eggs, but they have to be cooked above 71 degrees. I'm like, yeah, because I'm going to be putting a thermometer in the fucking eggs. But so there's like all of these things that you shouldn't eat. And a lot of that is like accurate because they're talking about like bacteria in the foods and stuff. But that's in terms of like nutrition guidance around pregnancy, that list is all that you've got. And then, then probes the question of like, how much do I eat? Do I eat more? Am I supposed to eat for two, quote unquote? Do I eat less? Like, what's it supposed to be? There's literally no guidance. And I can understand if you don't even have nutrition guidance in the first place, that can be so confusing.
Yeah, I think especially, like you said, if you don't have the nutrition guidance in the first place, I think all of that is so overwhelming because there's so much information. You're like, well, what do I do that's best for me and my baby?
Yeah.
And yeah, like honestly, just as long as you're seeking out that extra guidance outside of what you can see online, highly recommend that is what you're doing. Yeah, so we've touched on, nutrition and nutritional guidelines in general. I want to talk about, sounds a bit silly to say, but dieting while you're pregnant and what is the advice against that?
Yeah, okay. So dieting whilst pregnant is obviously not ideal, and I would highly recommend that you don't do it because the thing is, and once again, like I really had to just accept this, and every woman has to accept this, your body is going to change and you're going to put weight on. The estimated weight gain that a woman will have in pregnancy is anywhere from 12 to 20 kilos. That's including the weight of the baby. Now, this can be different for women again, depending on the person, because women's bodies are complex. So like I know people personally who have put on like 40 kilos in their pregnancy. I know women who have only put on 5. So it really just depends on the person. But the rule of thumb is like 12 to 20 kilos. Either way, you're going to be putting weight on, scale weight, because you're growing a baby. So dieting whilst pregnant really doesn't make any sense because not only are you naturally going to have your body changing and putting weight on anyway, the second thing is because of how your body changes, you won't be able to accurately see any fat loss because your belly's growing, your boobs are getting bigger and they're getting so much sorer, and like you're going to be holding more water weight and you're going to have scale weight fluctuations anyway. Your body's doing so many different things. The other thing to be mindful of too is like, as we just touched on with the nutrition, you need to be eating enough to actually provide the nutrients to your baby, who is a growing baby that relies on you in order to function, and for the body to be able to provide that nutrients as well. So if we're under eating, we're risking not providing enough of that nutrients, and that can actually be detrimental to the growth of the baby. So when we eat and when we provide nutrients, that run straight through the placenta and the umbilical cord into the baby. And so we need to be making sure we're eating enough for that. My recommendation, and the recommendation for pregnant women, is to just eat around your maintenance. And whilst it can be really hard to see your body changing, you do have to like just accept and be okay with it and understand that where you were, you can come back to. But I also think it's important while I'm talking about this to recognize that like you don't have to bounce back. There's so much out there about women and the pressure to bounce back after having a baby. And I just think that from what I've experienced so far, pregnancy is so different from person to person, but it is so hard on the body. And I just think putting that pressure on yourself to think that you have to bounce back afterwards and go back to the scale weight or the look that you had previously is just, it's not a good way to think because it is just going to be pressure that sits there. And I think that like society's just brought this bounce back scenario in and women feel like they have to. But yeah, if you're carrying a couple of extra kilos after having bubs or you've got stretch marks or all these, like it's okay. It's just like it's learning to accept who you are now because your body and your whole life changes. But from a nutritional perspective, like just eating at maintenance and knowing what your maintenance is the best thing that you can do. You don't have to eat more, but don't eat less. Like just make sure that you're eating solid meals, you're providing the nutrients to bubs. And if you don't know what your maintenance is, like you can find that out. You can research that. You can do a macro calculator to find the average. You can go into ChatGPT and ask what your maintenance is. And if you know roughly what that looks like, it will be a good opportunity for you to just make sure you're giving your baby the best chance that they have.
Yeah, I think it's really important just to not, put all that pressure on yourself, because it seems like that is, well, like obviously I'm not experiencing that, but from what I've seen on social media and from other people that I've spoken to who have gone through pregnancy, it's something that is, it's kind of like active in their mind. If they're not purposefully trying to diet afterwards, it's just, a conscious thought that they have. So it's just important to address that as well.
Yeah.
In terms of, today's episode, I feel like I learned a lot in terms of your situation and how you felt navigating it. Obviously, I also learned a lot from, reading and understanding a little bit more as to what other information is out there and, what we get given to us as women in terms of, guidelines or general health understanding. Hopefully you guys learned a little bit too as well. And I would love to learn a little bit more as we go further down the track and learn more about Steph's journey. So thanks for letting us know about everything.
That's okay. I'm interested to see how I go too. I'm interested to every week's different. So I'll definitely keep you guys in the loop as we go.